So it was, I don't know. I mean, so yeah. I mean, as a fan of it, watching it, I mean, you know, you could definitely relate. You know, especially leaving town and you know, maybe things don't work out the way you think that they were going to work out, or you know, or that girl that you feel like drunk dialing every once in a while.
I want to get the designers in here as well. So Tom, as you probably know, has another show on Broadway right now called Next to Normal. So, yeah, I don't. Most people might not know, what does an orchestrator do? So, could I ask, what did you simply? What did you do with the music from the original album?
When Michael called me to work on this, when Michael first presented it, he said, "So I want to put American Idiot up. I want to stage it, and we would like to do a reading. I don't quite know how it's going to happen, but can you help with this?" And so I mean, it took me 2 seconds to say, of course. Basically, I guess as an orchestrator and arranger, it was coming in and figuring out how to keep the integrity and brilliance of the album intact, but open it up now to, that first reading was 12 people, and now it's become 19. So vocal arrangements, because now we have women as well as men, figuring out keys, figuring out how this new theatrical version will work. So basically, everything was led by the story, and it wasn't about, oh, you know, I'm going to come in and take this music and suddenly put a stamp on it that doesn't belong. This is American Idiot. What is the American Idiot theatrical version going to be? And still keep this incredibly iconic and brilliant album intact and become a new piece of storytelling for the theater.
And but in terms of just the sort of the notes on the page, I'm curious, what number would you say in the show is like musically most different? I know you were trying to maintain the integrity, but in terms of the reworking it, which one would you say is most different from the two?
There are a couple. I guess the one that I would point to is the one that I sort of the first big idea I had to try something different, which is What's Her Name, the final song, where I called Michael and said, I have an idea for this song, and you know, we come to the end of the show, and this incredibly emotional thing has happened, and Johnny has come home, and there's just a realization on all these people's part. They've gone through this incredible journey and not quite sure where they are and what they've lost and what has been worth it. And I thought it would be a really cool moment to just bring it all down. And what about piano and cello here to sort of begin the song? And the cello plays the melody that Billy originally wrote, that the band originally wrote for What's Her Name. So it's just a different angle on the song. It's still a song, but I thought, and then midway through, we hit them with the wall of sound that song so brilliantly does on the album. So you have both. You have a new way to tell the story of What's Her Name, but again, it's still this brilliant song. But for this emotional moment at the end, I felt like it would be cool to take a breath and just give John the most naked moment that the song can allow.
So, and then moving on down the line here, Kevin, as a lighting designer, I mean, you have a lot to work with here in terms of extra light. It seems like the video monitors. What was there a sort of guiding principle for you about the design?
Yeah, we started, Michael and the set designer, having done Spring Awakening, we sort of started with this, knowing that there are places that we had been with that show that we tried not to want to do the same thing, in fact, do the opposite of. So where Spring Awakening was so like finely calibrated and sort of minimal focus, we knew that we wanted to make this, we very quickly sort of settled on this sort of maximalist idea, where there'd be like, especially you can see it in the first number of the show, like multiple points of focus, whereas Spring Awakening was so like sort of isolated and spare and empty, that we wanted like layers of images and layers of focus. And then we also knew that I pointed out that there were all these other pop rock shows on Broadway like Fela and Rock of Ages, and Spider-Man is going to be playing now. And we wanted to try to avoid the excess of the environmentalism that those shows had. So I kept encouraging us to keep the entire show on the stage and not creep out of the house like those shows did, or like we did with Spring Awakening. And also I just wanted the show to look not like going to see a rock concert at Madison Square Garden, which is something we could never compete with and what people would expect to see. But I really wanted our show to look like you went to the Metropolitan Opera and had the rules of getting into an opera like this show does with the slow curtain. But then this rock show would explode from the stage out at you.
It's really interesting that you mentioned, opera, because you have described it as a pop, as a punk opera, and if you think about punk music and opera, they don't have a lot in common, and yet, in terms of the expression of extreme emotions, there's a lot in common there, it seems, and about transcending any kind of naturalistic or realistic representation of life. But about the rock concert thing, I think somebody said yesterday that Stephen Hoggett, the choreographer of the show, that he got some moves from the rock concert. Is that true?
That we got some of our moves?
Some moves at a rock concert?
Well, we saw Billy Joe jump off the stage into everybody's arms, and we decided to put that in the body surfing. So you saw the second number of the show.
So tell me a little bit about the choreography. There's a lot of just sort of low center of gravity type of movement here.
Well, I mean, the thing about Stephen Hoggett, he was so brilliant that he opened up my mind to what movement means. I mean, dance is movement. It doesn't mean technical movement and a vocabulary that we learn in a dance class. It just means movement, any movement. And we had this cast of amazing actors and singers who were great movers, but if you ask them to warm up at the bar, they bring in some beers. Like they're not dancers. So what Stephen Hoggett had to come up with was a way to create movement that meant something to the actors, that meant something to the music, but that everybody could do. So what we did was a sort of a really interesting and beautiful way to choreograph a show. It was very collective and collaborative and emotionally based. So he would say, I want everyone in the room to come up with 2 moves about trying to break out of this small town, whatever it is, punching, hitting, whatever. So go ahead, do 2 moves, 1, 2, whatever it is, anything you want. And then you did it, and you did it, and you did it, and then we formed a circle instead of using a mirror, which creates all kinds of self-awareness and uncomfortableness. And we all faced each other in a circle and taught each other the movement, choreography, right? Instead of just regurgitating movement that we've learned our whole lives. So 2 things happened. One, the actors felt a real sense of authority with it, so they were comfortable right from the beginning instead of learning it the way you learn most dance class moves. And 2, I have never had to give a note ever on the stage about marking or not dancing full out, because everyone has such ownership with this stuff, because it all came from all of us. So it was really wonderful.
So turning to the actors now, I mean, that's some just amazing, just moving and just, it's violent, it looks violent. And what's it like? I mean, how do you not, twist an ankle or accidentally punch a co-star? You're up there.
You twist a lot of ankles, actually. I've twisted both of mine, I think, during the show. But it's okay, because we know we weren't marking, like she said. But, we do feel a sense of ownership. At least I do. I know you guys do. We've all created it as a family and immediately became a family so easily. So it was easy for us to love, like, oh my God, did you see what John did? I want to do that too. And then we'd all do it together, and we just have such a good time. But there's definitely twisted ankles and injuries, and you do what you can with the injury that you have. But it's all worth it in the end, because you're doing American Idiot.
Before I forget, I just realized that we're going to have about 15 minutes. We're going to have a question and answer part. So they'll have some mics running around here. But and I want to. So Will and John. First of all, nice to have characters named after you. But I want to ask, characters you play are flawed, conflicted, angry. It's a cliche that actors want to be loved, you know, on stage. Is there ever, either during rehearsal process or maybe ongoing, is there ever a struggle between making, being true to the character or, you know, sweetening, avoiding sweetening your character in any way?
Sweetening the character?
Adding sweetener, yeah.
Making the character too sweet? I feel like there have been conversations about finding love in it, and it's not all about just rage and lashing out, and so that it's been important to find moments of joy and play and happiness and stuff like that. But I don't feel much pressure to see love on stage. What I do want is to be felt, as opposed to loved or liked. You know, as long as somebody, you know, if there's some kind of vibration happening, you know, back and forth, then that's good.
Gotta get something out of John. So, obviously you made a big hit with Morris Stiefel in Spring Awakening. Tell me a little bit about Moritz versus Johnny in the show.
Well, Johnny would definitely win in a fight.
But Moritz has a gun, so...
What's that way?
But Moritz has a gun.
Precisely. You know, people ask a lot about, you know, like the similarities between the character, and did it feel like kind of the next step? And I think for Michael and I, like, I was really into the idea of Spring Awakening was the first time I'd ever done a musical of any sorts, and I honestly thought it was the only one I'd ever do. And towards the end of my run in Spring Awakening, Michael asked me about this to do the reading in the workshop, and I had such a great time. There's a lot of challenges about acting in a musical, especially like a rock musical or a musical that doesn't kind of follow the same kind of trajectory as more traditional musicals. For an actor, there's some really amazing challenges about how do you tell the story, and how do you have these scenes happen in a verse of a song. And it's really exciting, and it's really thrilling, and it's really hard. And I really like the idea of going back into that and going further with it. You know, I tend to forget about whatever the last thing I did was after I move on. And I had a thought early on where I thought, oh boy, you know, not that you want to think too much about how your work is going to be taken. You know, you really want to make sure that you can go home feeling good about it and not worry so much about what everyone else is going to think. But I was worried early on that people would think, oh, you know, he's just repeating himself. You know, he's playing an angry, kind of tortured person in a rock musical. And as far as the performance goes, a lot of it I can't help. It's just what kind of comes out of me when, you know, I love rock music. And when asked to perform it, there's a certain, especially when it is angsty and it's immediate, and it's kind of, a lot of these songs are about, you know, inner frustration, and a lot of the songs that Moritz sang in Spring Awakening were the same type of kind of primal scream. That's just kind of inherent. That's what comes out of me. But as far as the characters go, other than being kind of expressive and angry young men, they're incredibly different. Obviously, you know, it's funny that I said that Johnny would win in a fight, because I do actually, you know, you know, Johnny makes a choice in this throughout this show to keep going, and I hope, spoiler alert, Moritz shoots himself. And Johnny makes the choice a choice. This is something you said so lovely last night, Michael. That Johnny makes this choice that ultimately that saves his life. You know. So, and so despite those kind of similarities that I think are just really more based around the genre of the show, if you will, this kind of new breed of rock musical. But other than that, I didn't approach them in the same way. Moritz was definitely miles away by the time I started working on this.
I wanted to ask, Tom mentioned, of course, that he was a vocal arranger of the show as well. Billy Joe, in terms of listening to your songs sung by women, what was that experience like? That must have been a new thing.
Yeah, that was nice. Yeah, it was, you know, I think Mike, he was like, man, your songs sound better when women are singing. But no, I thought it was beautiful, and their voices are so, you know, it's my own voice is pretty one-dimensional. I mean, these women can sing, you know, it's like acrobats, you know. So I mean, it was just beautiful.
I'm going to ask some sort of left field question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. The iconic image from the album and then on the program and the posters is a grenade shaped like a heart that's bleeding, held in somebody's hand. It would be too stupid for me to ask, you know, what's that image about?
Rage and love.
All right.
No, it's not. You know, that's definitely what it is. You know, it's a heart, and then you know, hold a pin and it can explode. So.
Can I ask where that came from? Was that your idea, or?
Yeah. Well, there was a couple of different ideas. There was this guy John Roker. He did this drawing of some. I think it ended up on an X record, and it was like someone holding a bloody heart, and it was an illustration. And then there was, and then Chris Billheimer, I was just telling him about it. It was like this heart grenade, and you know, like this whole image behind it, and I was thinking about it. And so Chris Billheimer did the album cover. That's what he came up with. We wanted it to look like salt bass or something like that too. Yeah.
I have a question. What came first, the lyric or the image?
The image came first. So yeah, I mean, as soon as we had that, then yeah, then we changed the one lyric. I was talking to Alicia the other day. Yeah, you know, some of the lyrics got changed because of that heart grenade. She goes, really, which ones? I go, well, she's holding on my heart like a hand grenade. And I was like, that's pretty much it.
And in terms of the original album and the show, I was sort of struck. I mean, I don't know if you guys consider if Green Day consider these influences, but by really sort of iconic past concept albums like The Wall and Tommy and Quadrophenia, obviously to some extent. But The Wall and Tommy and this show, to me, like they have in common a sort of a view of youth culture that perverted, you know, they get and also sort of a attraction to a messianic sort of figure. I may be interpreting too much, but you know, this sort of the darkness and the militarism in this show somehow relates to me in a way to The Wall and that vision of fascism. Not that this is a depiction of fascism here, but I want to just throw it out there. Were The Wall or Tommy, those kinds of concept albums, any influence to you?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, you know, Tommy, I'd say to go even before that, I would say a quick one by The Who's, because I just thought like that. I love how it's like every single part of that song is so catchy. Like it's just like these sort of I don't know how to explain it, but it's like you take power pop to the extreme levels, like a song like Dream Police by G-Trick or something like that, you know, where it's these, you know, super catchy choruses and very melodic, and you know, it's just three-chord mayhem, you know. And that's kind of what we were sort of trying to go for, but something very straightforward and very catchy and very sort of just big broad strokes. They're very big.
So I think it's time to turn on some questions in the audience. So